Hi and welcome to BlogTV. Now this week we'll be discussing Singaporeans' attitudes towards sexual harassment and how they confront it if it's actually taking place in the midst.
That's right. First of all, let's define sexual harassment, okay? It's described when any verbal, that's right, doesn't always have to be physical, any verbal, non-verbal or physical action is used to change a victim's sexual status against the will of the victim, resulting in the victim feeling inferior or hurting the victim's dignity. That's pretty deep. Tell you what, for a more concise and personal meaning to it, let's just ask our guest.
How would you describe it?
It really depends on the person who is in the receiving end of the harassment. So if I feel that it's harassment, then it's harassment.
Give us an example.
An example would be catcalling. Like if I'm walking down the street and someone catcalls. If it's just one time, it's fine. Yeah. But if it's sort of persistent and following me, then it's harassment for me. Okay. So you have to decide for yourself.
Pete?
Yeah. I think pretty much the same. Anything that's demeaning, physical or verbal, I think can be sexual harassment. But it depends on the recipient, really.
Well, that's broad, though. What do you mean by demeaning?
Anything that can put somebody down or make them feel pretty bad about
True, but sometimes, you know, just like Vanessa mentioned, you might not know. Everybody's got their own sensitivities. You know,
Sure.
You might call someone beautiful and they might get offended. That's
And a
sexual
cat call
harassment.
might actually make someone feel attractive.
Exactly. All right.
I feel attracted when I get the cat call.
I think it depends on whether you like that particular person who does and talk the way they do to us. If you are okay with that, as in you like that person or you can accept that person, then it's all right. If you don't like that person, you hate that person, that is like totally sexual harassment, I think. Yeah. That's how you can...
Yeah, that's true. It's very subjective. I mean, like you said, if someone's talking to you in a sexual way, it's only harassment if you don't like the person. Yeah.
All right, so we've heard what our guests have to say. We actually decided, rather than just talk about it, we would go out. We would find out if Singaporeans witnessing something that could be considered sexual harassment would actually stand up.
Put them to the test. Tim? So we have two young patrons play a waitress and a customer getting the between our two actors.
I want your number. Why don't I ask my boss about that, and then you can try to ask me.
What?
Tell them to get somebody else to get your order, get this order.
This woman tries to get our actress to help herself. But these ladies just continue with their evening. Finally, the manager is called in to intervene. By the end of the night, we noticed that it took physical harassment, nearing abuse to elicit any response.
No, I don't think so. Come on.
Having seen enough, this woman gets up to find the manager.
Do you think that perhaps in Singapore, people generally think there has to be some sort of physical aspect to it before they will stand up to do something? They'll react to actually consider it sexual harassment?
Probably. It's hard to guess what's going on in their minds, but probably something that really dramatic for them to take notice.
But it shouldn't always have to just come down to something physical before people consider that sexual harassment, then, does it?
I think it's in the eyes of people, what's the level of severity, you know, if it's just verbal, you know.
Okay, verbal. So what, in your opinion, what are some verbal cues that you think would actually be considered sexual harassment?
I don't know if I can say this. Look at that sexy ass move or stuff like that, you know, can make somebody uncomfortable. Like, you're staring at my ass. Why are you staring at my ass?
Okay, here's the thing. In this piece of footage, it seemed like no one really reacted. But it was quite a different story, wasn't it?
They did react. I mean, the lady who stood up, she went over to find the manager later, and they were very upset. I mean, the entire night they'd been listening to the various comments that the guy had been making to the waitress, and gradually it escalated over the course of the night, and it reached a point where they couldn't take it anymore. And the lady got up, she looked for the manager, she came with her friend. They were very upset. They basically said how this guy was being inappropriate. The management should do something. Their night was being spoiled by having to deal with to witness all this happening behind them, so they couldn't enjoy the show, they couldn't enjoy their drinks. They were very upset, but at the same time they didn't directly intervene. Rather, they went through, you know, sort of like a...
Would you think you'd be different in a situation like that? Supposing you were one of the guests and you saw something like this happen at the table next to you, what would you have done? How would you have reacted? Would you have waited till there was some sort of...
Well, I think a certain line has to be crossed.
And what is
before-
that line?
Well, that's very subjective too, isn't it? I mean,
Or to get yourself into
What is your
trouble.
line, Adrian?
well, first of all, it depends how big the guy is. That's a very big determining factor. But I think really, if of course if there's any immediate danger, if he's being physically threatening, that's definitely something that I think anyone would really jump in and
Okay, what would you all have done if you all were actually patrons at that bar at that point in time? What would you have done?
I will ask the girl, are you okay with it? Because if I'm her, I will straight away, fight back. If my manager or my boss doesn't respect, things that boundaries that I set, then I will quit the job. So if the girl doesn't respond, then I do not blame others, which is there, to actually stand up for her. Because if you don't stand up for yourself first, then how do you expect people to? Because if you don't do anything, people thought that you are okay with that. That's a common sense.
But what if she doesn't know how to articulate? Like maybe she thinks this is her job and she's just a lowly waitress and that she doesn't have any rights to stand up for herself.
How would you have reacted, Vanessa?
I think what you said first, to actually ask the girl if you're okay and if she needs any other help that we can find for her would be, I guess, my instinct, but it's all hypothetical.
Her brief actually was that she was told to tell people that it was her first day on the job, and so she didn't really know what to do, and so that's what she was telling people who did approach her. So that's sort of the mindset that she had.
Yeah,
Would you have stepped in?
Absolutely.
At which point?
At the physical point, I would have no option but to step in.
But
she
supposing
was
when
clearly uncomfortable.
when she was still getting called by the guy, when he was verbally harassing her, would you have stepped in at that point already?
I probably wouldn't have stood up and confronted the guy, but I would have definitely said something.
You guys actually mentioned something about the fact that because she's a waitress, she might feel that she's actually pressured to have to put up with it. As a manager of a bar, let me ask you, do waitresses have a different standard? Are they set to different standard?
No, I don't think they are, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to feel like just because you're a waitress and you're working, you have to put up with this kind of thing. That being said, I mean, in this kind of industry, people get drunk and they may get a bit fresh with waitresses. It's something that does happen. Thankfully, not at my establishment, except during the
During the stunt. But are your waitresses trained to be able to deal with situations like this?
Well, we do tell them, we do give them a brief when they first join the company. We tell them, this is what you should do. If someone does harass you, just look for the manager. The manager will take care of things. And I guess it's up to their own personal level of comfort and tolerance, what they find acceptable and what they find what they don't.
Well, here's the thing. Do the clothes matter? Does it matter?
For a waitress
I
or
think
for just in general?
80-20, I think.
Yeah.
80-20.
Well, once again, we actually put this to the test, and we will find out in just a bit if the clothes actually matter when it comes to sexual harassment.